Okay, in this assignment, we're going to take a look at a small passage from chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby. In this passage is where we meet George Wilson for the first time, and we're going to analyze this passage, and to do so, we're going to annotate it. In particular, we're looking for what we learn about the character, but we're also looking for how we learn it. Okay, specifically, we're looking at various methods of characterization. So I'm going to model for you kind of how to read for your character. Okay, we're going to do so with a character that none of you guys chose. So please follow along with me. You need to make the same annotations that I do, and then you're going to turn this in as a PDF on Canvas. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to it. This is again when Tom is taking Nick to meet his side chick. Okay, he's taking him to meet Myrtle, and so this is the first time we meet George. So here we go. It says he was a blonde, spiritless man, anemic, and faintly handsome. When he saw us, a damp gleam of hope sprang into his light blue eyes. Now, I underlined all of these things because we kind of, let's see what they have in common here. It says blonde. Now, I'm going to move on to the next one, spiritless, without spirit. That's what spiritless means, right? It means without spirit. Anemic, okay, anemic is usually in reference to like a health concern, but anemic means that you are lacking spirit or without body, okay? You are without body here. Okay. If you are anemic in terms of your blood, then your blood is actually not thick enough, right? There's not enough body to the blood. So anemic would be without body, okay? Faintly means that it's without saturation, right? Faintly would be without saturation. Okay, or it's dim. Now, let's go back to the word blonde. It says he was blonde. Okay, now normally we wouldn't think much of blonde, but now these other words right next to it are without spirit, without body, without saturation. So blonde goes along with that as well. If you are blonde, then your hair is without color. Okay, now I know that's not entirely true, but go with me here on this, okay? Now go down to this idea that he has light blue eyes. If we're talking about blonde being without color, blue eyes, I don't know if you guys know this, blue eyes means that your eyes, the pigmentation around your eyes is actually not filled in as much. Like you don't have as much pigment around your eyes if you have blue eyes. That's why actually light colored eyed people are more sensitive to the sun because there's less there actually protecting your eyes. So light blue, we're just going to say without saturation again, right? Less saturated, or I'm going to say without pigmentation. I know that's not 100%, scientific, but without pigmentation, okay? All right, so overall, just in these first, these first two sentences, we're gathering that he's almost ghost-like, right? He's ghost-like, okay? Or there's not much to him. Not much of interest, okay? Now, if I look at this, how do I know that? Look at this line here. He was blonde, spiritless man. Now, do I find out that there's not much to him because of what he says? No, in these two particular lines, we know these things because the character was described that way. Okay? So the method of characterization there is character description. Okay? Let's look at the next little bit. "Hello, Wilson, old man," said Tom, slapping him jovially on the shoulder. "How's business?" Okay, let's look at these two words here. Slapping him jovially. Okay, jovially would be like in a laughing manner or with life. Okay, and he's slapping him, which I know that we're doing it jovially, but still it's kind of an aggressive move, isn't it? And we know Tom to be aggressive already. Okay, so aggressive with life, which of course is in contrast to George Wilson, who is without life. Okay, so now how are we learning that Tom is aggressive and with life? Notice this is a character action. Okay, that's what he's doing because he's slapping him. That's a character action. Okay, so we know about Tom because of what he does, right? Whereas earlier we knew about Wilson because of how he was described. Okay, let's keep going. I can't complain, answered Wilson unconvincingly. When are you going to sell me that car? Let's keep going for just a second. Next week. I've got my man working on it now. Works pretty slow, don't he? No, he doesn't, said Tom coldly. And if you feel that way about it, maybe I'd better sell it somewhere else after all. I don't mean that, explained Wilson quickly. I just meant... Okay, let's go back real quick. This interaction is really significant. First of all, it says Wilson did so unconvincingly. That would be an example of character voice or character voicing. Okay, we're learning about kind of who he is in general in his voicing, right? He says something unconvincingly, meaning he's not bold, he's not aggressive about it. When are you going to sell me that car? Now, the reason why I put little brackets around that is because that demonstrates to us in this interaction that Wilson actually needs something of Tom, okay? He's in need of something. He needs Tom to give him the car so that he can sell it and make money, right? And that's why he says unconvincingly, because clearly he is in need of something. So there, we're looking at character dialogue. That's how we know about our character here. He's in need, all right? Then it goes down here. No, he doesn't, says Tom coldly, okay? That would be maybe the attitude. We're learning about Tom through attitude, okay? Notice what he says at the end. Maybe I'd better sell it somewhere else after all, okay? Tom very clearly holds all the power, okay, which demonstrates his dominance. So Tom holds all the power. And it shows his dominance in this situation. Oops, dominance, there we go. And we learn that, again, through dialogue there, right? Once again, down here, I don't mean that, explained Wilson quickly. I just meant, okay, clearly Wilson also knows that Tom is in charge. Wilson knows his place, and it's beneath Tom. The fact that he feels like he has to explain himself. I just meant... Okay, he has to clarify himself and kind of like backtrack a little bit because he knows that Tom holds the power in this conversation, okay, and maybe just in general. Again, here we've got dialogue there and there, okay? His voice faded off. Once again, we've got another image of Wilson fading into the background, right? That's Wilson. And Tom glanced impatiently around the garage. Then I heard footsteps on a stairs, and in a moment, the thickish figure of a woman blocked out the light from the door, or from the office door, excuse me. She was in the middle 30s and faintly stout, but she carried her surplus flesh sensuously, as some women can. I'm going to talk about a couple things. First of all, this woman comes in. We know that this is Myrtle. Okay, and she blocked out the light from her faded husband, not faded like that, but you know, her fading husband, her husband that is almost a ghost of a man. So of the remaining light, Myrtle, okay, is blocking out the remaining light. Perhaps she is blocking out whatever light remains in Wilson as well. I should say light remaining, right? Then, here's another detail we figure out about her. They describe her body as flesh. Okay, I know that's a weird word for some people, but they didn't describe it as her body, or they haven't even mentioned her name at this point. All we've seen is flesh. Okay, that there's an implication with just describing someone as a piece of flesh, and that takes away her personality, right? Or her, I don't know, identity, really. She's just more like a piece of meat there. She is a sexual object, and we know that. It says she carries that extra flesh sensuously, right? So it's in a sexual way. Okay, so she is a sexual object. Okay. She is essentially a very sexy woman. And when it says she has extra flesh, or that she like has a little extra weight on her, they're not saying that she's fat, right? She is just a sexy woman who kind of knows how to work her curves, right? She also knows that she's a sexual object, right? She knows it. And she finds value in it, right? As some women can. She knows what she's doing. Okay. Her face above a spotted dress of dark blue crepe de chine contained no facet or gleam of beauty. Okay. So notice her face, no facet or gleam of beauty. Again, her face, which holds all the personality, is being reduced once again to just her body. Okay, her face is of no importance, right? Of no importance, which means that she really is of no importance outside of being a sexual object. But there was an immediately perceptible vitality about her. Remember, I mentioned that word is important. This word, vitality, remember, means full of life. Okay, and that is Myrtle Wilson, right? That's her name, Myrtle, okay? She is full of vitality, and that again is in stark contrast to, remember, the George Wilson who is without color, without spirit, without body, without saturation. She, in contrast, is full of life. Okay, she knows who she is, and she kind of owns it. And who she is sexy. It is as a sexual object. It's very sad, but that's okay. There was immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering. Smoldering means sizzling hot, right? She smiled slowly. Again, she's doing this in a seductive way. And walking through her husband as if he were a ghost, shook hands with Tom. Okay, so clearly, where are her priorities? Is it with her husband, who she views as a ghost, or with Tom? That's the person she makes contact with, right? Again, these are character actions that show us about this character. We know about Myrtle. We know where her priorities are based on what she does, right? Her priority is on Tom, not on George Wilson. She then wet her lips, again, another seductive act, right? And without turning around, spoke to her husband in a soft, coarse voice. Notice again, without turning around. She is not acknowledging her husband. The only reason the only way that she acknowledges him is simply to say, get some chairs, why don't you, so somebody can sit down. Okay, so in her dialogue, the one thing she says to her husband, she doesn't even acknowledge him with a look. Instead, she just bosses him around. So that shows us that she knows that she's in charge. Okay, so in terms of power, Tom has the power over Wilson, but also his wife does as well, which further characterizes Wilson as without power. Right? Oh, sure, agreed Wilson hurriedly and went toward the little office, mingling immediately with the cement color of the walls. A white ashen dust veiled his dark suit and his pale hair as it veiled everything in the vicinity except his wife, who moved close to Tom. Okay, so first of all, these words appear: cement color, white ashen, and then veiled. Okay, veiled, I'd say it's covered, as if worthless, right? And even his surroundings, even George Wilson's surroundings are gray and without color, right? Really without color. I know it's a cement color, but really gray is without color, right? White ashen dust, okay? It's pale, it's dull, it's lifeless, right? Ashen dust would be lifeless. Okay, so even his surroundings. So in this, how do we know about a character? We learn about through the setting or the character's surroundings, right? And then again, we find out more about his wife, who moves close to Tom. That again is a character action. She is always giving Tom attention. And we know why, because she is his mistress, right? And again, that's a character action. Okay, so hopefully this kind of helps you think about how you should be reading this text. I know that this is a lot. I don't expect you to analyze and annotate every single word like this, but these are the things that you should be looking for, right? Through this passage, overall, what we know about Wilson, what we know is that he is really without power, without life, without power and without life, or lifeless, right? He's got kind of a sad existence. So that's really what we know about George Wilson. How we know it, okay? You can see that through a number of different things all along the left side there. Whoops, all along the left side there, okay? So make sure that you have all your annotations there, and then submit this back to Canvas as a PDF.